That was my good self. I'm in severe pain right now. I apparently have an abscess. Went to the emergency room, but they just don't do anything. So I'm not going to be able to get any sleep tonight. Again. The Abolishing the Book of Mormon video has all different amounts of views. The analytical program is completely trashed. It can't do anything right now. The main page is showing 545. The management page 542. The analytical update only 474, and then the top ranking, which I have to go to the main page because the front top 10 still is the same as 4 days ago. They purposely have trashed that one. Whether they YouTube employees are specifically targeting me for it, I have no idea. I can only assume because it's not being changed. So you'd think others would catch on and say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. So 18 people, though, do not like this video. And this is a dilemma for Mormons. They can't just put a thumbs down and call it good. There's science involved. And that's what Mormons do not want to accept. And I'm not saying that the Book of Mormon is bad and evil, but science tells us it is not a translation from an ancient document. All the different sciences tell us this. And so the church, under Brigham Young, did not take Translator with them, because they knew the Book of Mormon was a fraud, but they knew they needed to have it in order to claim succession from Joseph Smith and justify taking Mormons with them into the desert. But Mormonism Unveiled was the first book to expose it. Then in 1900, I think it was Solomon Spaulding, the same name as the author, who's a Baptist bishop. Bishop Spaulding. Yeah, J. Mark Spaulding, it looks like. Nope. No. Joseph Smith as translator. Oh, man. It was probably Reverend rather than Bishop. That's probably why I'm messing up. Reverend. Yeah, F.S. Spalding. Oh, man. And so he came out and said that the King Follett Discourse, or not the King Follett Discourse. God, I'm in such pain. The facsimiles of the Book of Abraham were incorrectly translated. That they're nothing compared to what Egyptologists understood them. And the only reason why the church had anything from the Pearl of Great Price is because of Franklin D. Richards, who was the mission president out in England. So the works of Joseph Smith are the Book of Mormon, what Mormons, the Brighamites, call Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, and we don't have the whole thing. The Community of Christ has it, and they call it the Joseph Smith revision, which is more correctly the way it is. Then there's King Follett Discourse, where he retranslates the Hebrew Bible, and then the facsimiles from the Egyptian papyri turned into the Book of Abraham. And so the Book of Mormon, not a legitimate book, not a translation of an ancient document. Then you have the Joseph Smith translation, which again is not a translation. And so with those two things, it's easy to see how people can say Joseph Smith is therefore going to be wrong on anything else he tries to come out with, such as the King Follett Discourse, Biblical Hebrew translation, and the Egyptian Papyri translation. And when you don't know the real church history, it's easy to let opinion decide for you whether it's for or against Joseph altogether. And as I've been trying to get across to Mormons, Joseph Smith is a translator. I just did his translation of, yeah, there it is, how Joseph Smith correctly translated the Hebrew Bible. It only has 42 views in 3 days versus 545 maybe, somewhere between 437 and 545. The prophets of the Brighamite Church did not take Translator with them. They left that in the grave of Joseph Smith. They wanted nothing to do with Translator. And so you won't hear conference in the sustaining vote, which is nowhere in Scripture, to refer to President Nelson as a translator. They leave it out. And yet the church continues to claim Joseph Smith is not a translator but a revelator, and that the Book of Mormon is therefore legitimate because it's revelation rather than translation. And So here I come. I pursued Biblical Hebrew first. And in the process, learned from my instructor that Paleo-Hebrew has not been deciphered. He gave some clues to a potential theory. It just wasn't enough to develop it into an actual theory. But it took me 6 months to decipher Paleo-Hebrew. 6. Lost my family from that. But 6 months I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And then went to the church. Said, hey, deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. Joseph Smith is a translator for Biblical Hebrew. His revision, his retranslation is correct. And I go over in that video. It's 17 minutes. But I show you on the thumbnail the corrected translation in Paleo-Hebrew. And having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, the church got upset. So upset that F. Michael Watson, the secretary to Gordon B. Hinckley, demanded I be excommunicated. As I was interrogated by my whole stake presidency and the whole bishopric, all joined in that little room when I was in the younger singles ward. As the bishop swears he saw me at sacrament meeting not partake of the sacrament, and everybody knows what that means. It means I've committed a sin where I feel guilty and didn't partake of it. Dear God. Isn't there a scripture about those who seek to find fault? But he did teach me a lot of new words about masturbation techniques. Dear God, what a nightmare that was. Had no clue what he was talking about. I only sort of understood pearl necklace. But he just went on dozens, literally for minutes, naming the different types. Dear God. Oh man. Anyway. So having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew and surviving the first attack by the church for having shown that Joseph Smith is a translator, I went on to decipher Egyptian petroglyphs, because the Paleo-Hebrew characters come from Egyptian. And thus, so I've shared with you my translations as best I can, because I wasn't able to finish the publications, because we're in Armageddon. We're in the end of the world. And that led me to recognize, hey, the Book of Mormon has science in it of astronomy, which is a precise day and hour, just by what Matthew claims. And Mormons justify, so that they don't have to have a specific date. But nope, we can, and it happened, and oh my God. And we're still in it. We're in the middle of it. We still have till 2024. I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it over the night. And so, church prophets are understood by Mormons as knowing more than any other Mormon. That they are prophets because they were purposely selected by God. Through revelation of the prophet, of course. But God had a hand in preparing and selecting these prophets. And Mormons will justify it when, you have Nelson, who was selected at the same time as Oakes by Spencer W. Kimball to become apostles. And so from that conference, that's why Nelson is the president of the church and not Oakes. Because Oakes had to finish up being a Utah Supreme Court justice. But I watch Nelson try to demonstrate some level of knowledge of Hebrew with Israel. The church still has it on the front page as they're preparing for conference. Let God prevail? Oh my God. And he even said he had biblical Hebrew scholars to help him. Oh my God. That is the most easiest word to define. Yah, Prince of God. Those Hebrew scholars should have known it. If they did know it and they told Nelson, and Nelson said, what else is there? that lends to a deviousness. But if he didn't know, and those scholars honestly didn't know, which seems strange that they wouldn't know, but that would mean that Nelson has demonstrated his inability to be a translator. And how does that go for Mormons? Because the church website thinks he's a translator now. Oh, let God prevail. Nelson's a translator. No, he's a fraud. And if you don't know the story of Jacob and Esau, you're not going to understand the translation, which is given to us in the text. But my lawsuits, because of what the church escalated, they tried to have me assassinated. And they paid the person. And I caught them having paid that person and thus sued them, because that's what I needed to find out. But the judges wouldn't even let me proceed with a case, despite having the evidence. They did not want the evidence out. And so I had to sneak in evidence for the official docket. It's on the public record now. And people check the docket. I had a commenter who had checked the docket. It's pretty much in advance. He must have got an inside look, because I didn't even see it on the docket yet. But there are people who check so that they can keep track of what rulings certain judges make. And there are those who check to see lawsuits for the church. And so I snuck in that the Book of Mormon was coded. And it's now on the public record. Pacer monitor, there it is. March 3rd. For Gaddy v. COP. Response to motion RE 80. Plaintiff's motion for leave to file motion for leave to file second amended complaint and over-length memo in support thereof and memorandum in support filed by defendant corporation of the president of the church. Really? So that's whose response? Jordan David. It's for the church, I guess. Filed by the defendant. It's ridiculous how the court just strings it along. God. But there's a big difference when you see the bigger picture. Yes, Joseph Smith was right about translating the Hebrew text of the Bible. Joseph Smith was right about the translation of the facsimiles into the text that we have as the Book of Abraham, which is not complete. He didn't finish. He didn't get to facsimile number 3. But I have. It's real easy, because I deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs, having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And as a decipherer, everything is like, oh wow, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. Just like Jean Champollion, once he deciphered Egyptian text after the learning of the Greeks, he then went to Egypt to look at all of the writings. And it's that same feeling of excitement. You can now read and understand. But the church, all this time, since Brigham Young, since his death, Joseph Smith's death, they've not claimed translator for Joseph Smith. And they knew it, because they knew the Book of Mormon was not a translation from an actual ancient Egyptian plates. And so here I come saying, oh, he's a translator of Paleo-Hebrew. Oh, he is a translator of Egyptian petroglyphs. And that freaks the church out. That's why they want me assassinated. And they may not have to worry about it anymore. I may die tonight with this pain in my mouth. Oh God. I was almost brought to tears earlier today. And nothing's open. Not until Monday or Tuesday, depending on which business. Oh God. And then I have to sign up as a new person. What a mess. And so yeah, the church has been milking the Book of Mormon to get more members. It's been a moneymaker. As not only do they get people to purchase the book, but they're not really into purchasing money from the Book of Mormon sales, because the church actually takes a loss. their sales come from getting people baptized into the church and paying tithing. As the whistleblower of $100 billion plus the $40 billion plus the $7 billion in interest, and then last year they made $6 billion off of us with coronavirus. Not off of me. I don't pay tithing anymore because I studied church history, because I needed to find out what's going on. Why is the church trying to have me assassinated? Why are they so upset about translation? Now I know. And so, yeah, as you can see, Mormons still refuse to accept it. They deny science, because the Book of Mormon is the major proponent, not the Book of Abraham, not the King Follett Discourse. That never even made it into our Doctrine and Covenants. But lots of Mormons love that talk, because as man is, man may become. As God once was, as God is, something like that. You know what I'm talking about. I'm in pain. Give me a break. And so, oh man, I thought people would find the thumbnail for the Mormons demand the LDS Church produce more ancient scripture. After 5 days, it is up to 82, but 5 days compared to 545. I've already revealed the reason why I use Baby Yoda in my ring ceremony. I brought it out, as I've always been silent about him and all of them. Oh, 548, according to the page here. Is that the same as the video itself? I've been clueless this whole time. Clueless. Yeah. Is the church clueless? No, they're not. But they were caught off guard. And that is causing them to err. And whether or not they abolish the Book of Mormon, they can't now. They have to double down. Isn't that how it works? You get exposed, so you double down. But yeah, Mormons aren't even Christian. There's just, the church took the Book of Mormon and completely changed Mormonism. So that as we grew up in the church, we were led to believe the transformation has always been the reality. And it's not the case. So, oh God. I don't know what to do. Alrighty, so I hope you understand you can't deny science, Mormons. Linguistics shows that Sidney Rigdon is the author. I'm the one who discovered, through my research of church history, that Joseph Smith Sr. is the author of the 116-page replacement. Because of the Tree of Life, dreams, and the Jewish mysticism that's involved. It's kind of interesting. I'm not technically the one who discovered it. Joe Samson, a devout Mormon, was the one who discovered it but he couldn't make the connection. He wrote the book written by the finger of God. He has some YouTube videos going over it, but he thinks that the Book of Mormon is legitimized as an ancient document because of the Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism did not get started until Alphabet Ben Sira in 600 AD. Oops, not an ancient document, not even considered classical. However, it is a legitimate book, the Alphabet Ben Sira, because the story of Lilith as Adam's first wife comes directly from the same petroglyph from Egyptian that is used in Genesis. So he was onto something. He did recognize how to translate, and he did it correctly. His story, therefore, should be accepted into the Torah. But nope. A lot of things were not put in the Torah that are still waiting in the Egyptian records. Not just a knowledge of the temple rituals and how they correspond to the creation story, and all other religions on earth. But it's amazing how I just stumbled right into it. Who would have thought it was still there to discover? As a little kid, I was so fascinated by the TV shows and movies about Bigfoot, aliens, Loch Ness Monster, Stonehenge, the Yeti, Abominable Snowman, the pyramids in South and Central America, that I wanted to be a discoverer of something. I still remember I had taken a world map and drew a travel destination line of where I would go and what was there in the world to discover. Who would have thought that little boy's desire would come to pass? So, yeah, if you don't know science, if you're a denier of science and all things science, first, how are you able to live? You're able to breathe because of science. You're able to communicate because of science. You're able to put a thumbs down because of science. And I think that's, well, I know that's why the church turned Joseph Smith into a revelator and had just tried to drop Translator. I don't know why they didn't just take it out of the Doctrine and Covenants and alter the Book of Mormon. But Joseph Smith clearly had Translator on his mind. But the thing is that the Book of Mormon was code, not translation. But it was talking about the need for translation. The brass plates is supposed to be Ezekiel 37 fulfilled. Remember? The genealogy of Joseph, stick of Joseph, son of Ephraim, and then the stick of Judah, the record of the kings of Judah, down to Zedekiah, and the prophets down to Jeremiah. And so those two books combined into one. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it so that I don't go an hour long or even 30 minutes. How long is this one? 35 minutes. I'm trying to figure out a quick, simple way to explain it so that you can understand, because there's so much that I've learned. But the church can't keep this a secret anymore. The church has tried to silence my publications, and the bishop, this is why I'm no longer going to church, is because the local bishop said, stop publishing and pull what you've got about ancient translation. Why do you bother coming to church? You know, the way you talk about the church leaders, you know, shows you have no interest in this church. What? This was before I became an antichrist, Korahor, apostate, Satan worshiper of the inverted pentagram. Oh wait, no, the church has the inverted pentagram. I have to find another demonic symbol, I guess. But yeah, that's what I found out studying history, is that inverted pentagram is troublesome for the church. But again, leave it to Mormons to deny. That's not what it means, even though that's what Isaiah is referring to. And once you understand that the Book of Mormon is just another set of apocalyptic literature, that the stories are apocalyptic. So the Great and Abominable Church is the church at the date of the signs in the heavens listed in the Book of Mormon, which come from Revelation. Yeah, and who's the founder of the Great and Abominable Church? The devil. What is the devil's sign? Isaiah, how art thou fallen from heaven? Inverted pentagram. So, yeah, it's a brilliantly encoded book. So yes, I now understand what Joseph Smith meant. And I understand why Joseph Smith got mad at Brigham Young for wanting to edit it. And Joseph forced him to leave the first editing in. And so when Joseph died, Brigham Young changed it to the second editing. So, yeah, I'll stop. I can't go to sleep. It still hurts too much. I've tried everything in the book. The emergency room even drugged me. That did nothing other than escalate it. Apparently I need horse tranquilizers. They're supposed to be able to help. They did nothing for me. Alright. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the church responds. Because they've responded to other people. Jeremy Runnels believes he was talked about in a roundabout sort of way. Not by name. They never do by name. No. No, they will never acknowledge anybody's name. They will not say the name. They will do it through their version of justification for why they're not doing it. Just as Benson did with translation, the First Presidency statement regarding the King James Version of the Bible. I look at that and just go, oh my God. He acknowledges the Article of Faith number 8, but then says, But Joseph used the King James Version, so we're using that. Like I said, Joseph Smith kept trying to get a better version. And then when he learned when he learned Biblical Hebrew, he wanted to do a Biblical Hebrew version. But then the Egyptian papyri came first, and so that was his opportunity. That's why he called the second papyrus scroll the Book of Joseph. Did you know that? I never even knew there was a Book of Joseph. The church kept that from me. Had to wait until I got in the institute or somewhere along the line to find out about it. But me, I've got it. So the Book of Abraham on this side, Book of Joseph on this side, and you can see Book of Joseph. And so yeah, but I already know what he was trying to do and how to do it, and I've already done it. Academia.edu. I've got a sample of Genesis to the flood, so that you can see how the Bible was done. But yeah, like I said, I can insert stuff and thus fulfill Ezekiel 37. Prophets won't even attempt it, let alone know how. If Nelson can't get Israel right, there's no way he's going to be able to fulfill Ezekiel 37. Instead, Nelson, as an apostle, said the Book of Mormon was the fulfillment. And that's the church's official position, is that the Book of Mormon is the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37. And it's not. Because I've already done it in sample form to show how it is done. And they want me dead and silenced. And that should tell you guys something. If they want me dead, why then are you not taking my information seriously? Why are Mormons not going, what's going on? The church is saying Joseph is a fraud. Travis is saying he's legit. Who's right and who's wrong? I, on my own wisdom, cannot tell. And so, while reading a passage of James one day, we Mormons decided that we have, I don't memorize the First Vision account, which is all coded. He didn't see the Christian Jesus as a Mormon twist with a body of flesh and bone, because the signs for the birth and death were not supposed to be a literal birth and death. Those were signs. Now, yes, he's a Jewish version of a Messiah, which means he will have to be born of both a mortal mother and father. And then he will eventually die. But they're talking about the signs of when the enemy would strike. So, those are the dates. And so for those of you who have lasted this long, if you haven't watched the other videos, 2017 to 2024. So, I hope I can sleep. It's not likely, but I'll try again.